Hello. So I want to talk about scenario, situation, news report, call it what you will, that to me really highlights just how absurd political correctness has become. I've been on record in my videos basically saying my views on political correctness. I think it's shackling, I think it's anything but polite. And what I'm going to talk about is really kind of highlights some of the reasons why so many people get irritated by the PC brigade and the constant policing of language. So there's a program called Saturday Kitchen. I don't watch it myself, but this was on Yahoo News. It's a cooking program, and the former TV presenter Matthew Kelly, who was known for Stars in Their Eyes, was making a guest appearance. Now the chef Jun Tanaka, who, as I understand it, is a chef who was born in New York City, apparently grew up in England, um, and he specializes in French Mediterranean food. But the guy is of Japanese ethnicity originally. I don't know if he's Japanese American but he looks Japanese and he has a Japanese sounding name. Now, Matthew Kelly kind of made this passing comment like, "Oh, I always think Japanese food is the cleanest. I always go to Japanese restaurants if I have the choice." Um, Excuse me, I'm just bringing a video out if they're making a bit of noise. Yeah, so that was obviously a little bit of an embarrassing moment because Jun Tanaka doesn't specialize in Japanese food. Obviously, Matthew Kelly was sort of assuming that he did because the guy looks Japanese. Now, here's the thing. Mr. Tanaka himself said he didn't really care, and it happens all the time. But there is already this manufactured outrage coming from I don't know who, range of overly sensitive people talking about casual racism. Now, this concept of casual racism is just the latest kind of terminology that the PC Brigade used to try and make communication as difficult as possible. Now, at worst, this was a slightly embarrassing situation. Matthew Kelly assumed something that was inaccurate, but it's no big deal. No one was hurt. Jun Tanaka wasn't offended. Um, I'm looking at the comments on this story. Virtually everyone agreed that it was an unfair. So it got me thinking. This isn't the first time this idea of casual racism has been used. There have been certain ethnic minority actors who have kind of complained about so-called casual racism. I have to say, I take issue with this. I take issue with it because when you try to say that something is racist that isn't, you're actually making genuine racism have less of a meaning. I have also been very vocal in my videos against actual racism, that is to say, malicious, mean spirited hostility to people from another ethnic group that is based on generalizations, that is based on a superiority complex. I abhor racism in all its forms, but I also abhor this sort of political correctness. And I don't think something that racism can be casual. People may put their foot in it sometimes, and they may say things that are inaccurate or based on an assumption. And okay, maybe someone should correct them, and they're going to go for a bit of embarrassment. That's it. But to actually suggest that Matthew Kelly, and that's just one example, is racist is utterly absurd. I mean, his what he said was actually what sounded like a compliment. Japanese restaurants are the best. So it really bothers me that the PC Brigade have to find a sinister overtone in everything. When they're saying casual racism, what they're actually saying is, "Oh, this is hatred that's somehow dressed up." This is utterly absurd. And if you are the sort of person to try and find racism in everything, or try and find offence in everything, frankly, you need to get a grip. Because what I find, and I'm not the only one, far more offensive a shackling expression to the point where everyone has to constantly walk on eggshells. Um, I mean, where do you draw a line? Where do you draw a line? Is it a case that everyone has to constantly self censor in case they may say something that someone may find slightly offensive? Um, there's things that I hear that I don't particularly like that irritate me, they rub me up the wrong way. But I'm not going to cry and be a victim. Um, I'm from Northern Ireland. I get irritated when some people, mainland Britain, constantly talk about Irish as if it's all one thing. That's just a personal thing that irritates me. But I'm not going to go out and, try to sue someone because my human rights have been violated in that sense, or I'm not going to go around feeling like a victim. I really think that the problem with focusing on such trivial non issues is that they then make actual racism, and there is actual racism in society, they devalue it from being a serious problem of bigotry and hatred to being insulting. So they think that they're elevating casual racism into something important, but what they're actually doing is they're bringing down. So put it this way: this is like casual racism. This is hardcore racism. They think they're doing this, okay, or I should say, they think they're doing this. What they're actually doing is this. If that little hand gesture made sense, what I'm saying is that they are devaluing actual racism. Same with sexism and homophobia. Um, the amount of there isn't a day goes by when someone doesn't choose to be offended by something. The Labour Party leadership candidate Owen Smith, he was talking about his background. He said, "I'm from a normal family, growing up in the part of Wales." And the PC Brigade took that to be some sort of slur against his rival at that time. She's now dropped out, but Angela Eagle is a lesbian woman. So people took that to be some sort of slight against her. Um, as far as I recall, she personally didn't make an issue of it, but there were people who chose to be offended on her behalf, as if by saying he came from a normal background, he was somehow making a homophobic statement. That is nonsense. I think what he meant was, I come from a sort of conventional background that's not particularly exciting. That's what he was saying. He wasn't saying, you know, there's anything wrong with gay people. He wasn't trying to make some sort of homophobic statement. And if you're a gay person and you took it to mean that, frankly, you need to get over yourself and stop being so sensitive. Nobody, nobody should be treated like a protected species. Because true egalitarianism, true equality, comes from precisely that. Everyone being treated the same. So I don't believe that gay people or Asian people or black people should be treated any worse or any better than anyone else. That's why I get a little bit irritated sometimes with manufactured offence. It seems to me there are people who are determined to find offence in everything. Now, I'm not saying that people should never watch what they say. I'm not saying that people should be reckless. I'm not saying that when people are being obnoxious, they shouldn't be called out. But when we get to a point where people are talking about casual racism, I consider there's no such thing. You might get non-malicious ignorance. You might get people who are making assumptions that aren't quite accurate. But by putting a loaded word like racism into it, it's disgraceful. And I've had situations where I've been in the debate about subjects similar to this, and someone sent me back a message saying, "Oh, you're white splaining this." Now, it seems to me that the progressive political movement, love to find offence and love to display their movement as being all about equality and all about tolerance, and yet the amount of intolerance within progressive politics is astounding. Because any sort of language they don't approve of, any sort of words that they construe to be offensive in any way, because they mold it into that. And we're going to get to a point, I really believe this, we're going to get to a point whereby if you forget to mention the Q at the end of LGBTQ, you're going to be deemed a homophobic, horrible monster. That is the sort of world outlook progressives have, and it's why I'm not a conservative, by the way. I'm not saying this from a point of view of defending conservative thinking. I'm a centrist. But as a centrist, um, I recognise flaws on both sides, and on the left, I think this is a major issue. Now, to be fair, it isn't everyone on the left. There are people on the left who reject political correctness. Um, that comedian, Bill Maher, I think he's called, he's got fairly left wing politics, but he is very politically incorrect. Frankie Boyle in the UK, I don't really like this, maybe not the best example, whatever. He's left wing. He's extremely politically incorrect. I think he's a bit of an asshole myself. But that's just me. My point is, it's not so much a left right thing. I probably should say that. I also believe that there is such a thing as right wing political correctness. Um, you get certain situations, especially to do with country and military, where the right actually get extremely sensitive when it comes to wording. So it does work both ways. But the professionally offended brigade need to really get a grip and just stop seeing every little thing as the end of civilization. Um, if someone is genuinely being hateful, if they're saying something that really, really is hateful, and if they're making crude generalizations, etc., fine, debate them on it and call them out on that. But when people are actually trying to delve into every little syllable to find offence, it's a very sad situation. And we're going to get into a situation where communication will be extremely boring and extremely restricted because people will constantly be censoring. People are individuals. And what progressives need to understand is you cannot mold everyone into communicating the way that you want. You just can't do that. If people are, like I say, displaying actual racism or sexism or homophobia, and they're doing it in a very obvious way, okay, call them out, criticize them, whatever. But the thing is, and maybe I'm going off tangent here, but it's all interrelated actually. It isn't just about saying, oh, we don't like what you're saying, don't say that. They actually do want to censor other people. And, the video I uploaded yesterday about those left wing students who were trying to stop people from speaking, Milo, forget the guy, I always do this, I always forget um, someone's full name, but anyway, well known gay right wing blogger. He was going to make a speech at a seminar, and people were actually blocking people from getting in. Now, if you are so super sensitive that you want to physically stop someone from hearing someone else speak, that says a lot about you. And it actually shows you're the intolerant one. I abhor racism, I abhor sexism, I abhor all forms of bigotry, but I'm not going to say that the racist or the sexist or the homophobe should absolutely be shut up. I believe they should be challenged. I believe they should be criticised. But I don't believe in just shutting them up because then the intolerance. I think it was Voltaire that said, you know, I disagree with what you're saying, but I'll defend to death your right to say it. That principle is extremely important. Um, and yeah, I've went off a bit on a tangent with this one, but the point is, casual racism, it's bullshit. It just, you either have racism or you don't. There's no such thing as casual racism because when people say casual racism, what they're actually saying is this is sinister hatred and it's cloaked up to be something else. What it really is an innocent slip of the tongue or, you know, non-malicious ignorance. That's what it is. And feel free to correct someone or, you know, but to paint like someone's being a racist, I think that's absurd. And this is where I take issue with some ethnic minority actors who say things like the film industry is casually racist. It's nonsense. A director has to cast or a producer has to cast who they feel is right for the job. Um, and in the end of the day, if they want a Chinese character and they get a Chinese actor to play that role, how the hell is that casual racism? It's just casting. It's just the whole point about acting is to be convincing in the role that you're doing. So if a director has a storyline, has a Chinese character in it, naturally you're going to employ a Chinese actor to do that role. But there are people who say, "Oh, it's casual racism." How? How? That makes no sense to me. Um, so yeah, that's how I feel about this. Final words. By all means, nothing wrong with calling out genuine racism, homophobia, etc. And I'm not in denial. Those things do exist. They do. But if you're trying to find offence in every little thing, if you're trying to, there isn't a day goes by where there isn't a report like this, and it is, I would say, about 90% of the public do not care, of all backgrounds. Now, this is another thing. It's actually patronising to the supposedly offended target audience, because when white progressives in particular decide on themselves to take offence for Asian people or black people or whatever, it's kind of patronising. It's kind of treating those people like children, like they need to be defended. It's nonsense. So let me know your thoughts. Thanks for watching.